Foundation Physiotherapy at Georgetown Honda present Out of the Park with Barry Davis. This week, former Blue Jay Jesse Barfield helps us realize that in Blue Jay land, maybe it's time to start getting excited.
This is very gratifying. I mean, this team reminds me a lot of our 85 team. They can do a lot of things well, little things to help win ball games. They don't just do it by the long ball. I mean, they do it. They need single to right field, single to left field. They get it done. And that's how you win. You're not going to win just hitting home runs.
And now, here's a man that Jesse Barfield wasn't defending to the Houston Astros at the beginning of the season. It's Barry Davis.
Hey, I'll tell you this, Tom. I am old enough to remember just how good those Jesse Barfield offenses were. I'm also old enough to remember how bad they were in 1977, and I probably know how baseball was before the Blue Jays ever existed. I'm old, okay? I get it. But I'll tell you one thing. Jesse Barfield knows his baseball, and if he says that this is not too soon to ordain this team the best offense in Blue Jays history, I'm going to believe him. And why not? This team has done so much. But what is it about this team that he loves so much? We will find out on this week's episode of Out of the Park. You are in for a very, very fun conversation with the former Toronto Blue Jay. We talk about his relationship with Bell and Mosby. We talk about some of the managers he's had a chance to work with. Jesse runs the gauntlet on conversations. We even find out how he and his wonderful wife, Marla, met. A beautiful love story here on Out of the Park.
Yeah, a wonderful story. And, the biggest nugget I got out of it was, he gave us a little glimpse into how it is he stays so overwhelmingly positive and upbeat on baseball Twitter.
Yes. And speaking of, when we return, we will tell you why it is much easier to be positive about the Toronto Blue Jays here as we get to the middle part of September than it was at the end of August. There's Tom Forth. I'm Barry Davis. You're listening to and watching Out of the Park.
Play ball! Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, the first pitch with Barry Davis.
And the first pitch is brought to you by the fine folks, including myself, at Georgetown Honda. Can I call myself a fine folk, Tom? Is that being a little bit too egotistical?
Well, you know what? I'd say maybe the finest.
Okay.
You thought the joke was coming, but...
Yes. If you're interested in a car, folks, come see me. Give me a shout. I'm at Georgetown Honda. We have, we have some inventory issues, as all car dealers do right now. If you see a car that you like, buy it. Don't wait, because it will be gone real fast. The good news is, if you like Honda Civics, we've got the all-new redesigned 2022 Honda Civics in. We will soon be getting in the 2022 CRVs. We're getting some Ridgelines. If you're into the pickup trucks, we're actually getting a couple of those in. The problem is, COVID has caused a lot of fallout in many ways, and one of them is in the auto industry. There's been a shortage of microchips, so cars are not being built as quickly as they have been in the past. But if you're looking for something, give me a shout. I will find a car for you. That's my goal. I'm going to find something for you. Except for you, Tom. I'll never find you a car.
It's okay. I've seen you chase fly balls. I'll find myself a car if I need it.
Hey, speaking of, so in the Blue Jays game on Saturday, there was a pop fly behind home plate.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Did it bring back memories?
And the Minnesota Twins catcher, who's paid a lot more to catch baseballs than I ever was, dropped the foul ball behind home plate. Yeah. And God love him, but Buck Martinez says, well, yeah, that. I've seen that before many times. Dan, we've all done that before. When I did it, he was laughing at me, making fun of me. How do you drop a foul ball like that? It's not easy to catch a foul ball.
Nope.
That's all I'm saying.
No, but I think it should still be okay to make fun of someone that drops one.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead. Make fun. Make fun of me all day long. That's totally fine. Tom, when we spoke last week, we were talking about, okay, Blue Jays are back in it. They're gaining some ground. They may have a chance to get a wild card spot. As we sit and speak and record this show, the Blue Jays go into Sunday's game still grabbing on to one of those spots because the Yankees lost Saturday. Blue Jays win.
Yep.
This is going to be a fun couple of weeks because two of the Red Sox, Yankees, and Blue Jays are going to make it to the postseason. There's no doubt about it. It's going to be two of those three teams. One of them isn't going to make it. So this is all going to come down to whichever team is the hottest. Mm-hmm. I don't want to turn this into any kind of a negative conversation, but if the Blue Jays were to make the postseason, I'm not talking the wild card game. I'm talking about the ALCS, and you're lining up your rotation. I can't have Ryu in that rotation right now. I think that if it was just a blip, one bad start, I understand. But he's been rocked now 2 in a row. He hasn't pitched very long. He hasn't pitched very well in general in the second half of the season. I'm not putting him in my rotation. He's not part of my 3-man squad going into the postseason. What says you, Thomas?
I think that's fair. I think I'm really glad that he's going to get at least another start this year.
Yes.
Because I don't want to discount someone with such a history of success, right? And consistency. Ryu's only problem with the Dodgers ever was injuries, really, right? He's always rocked those low ERAs. But let's face it, there were some rule changes this year that a lot of reporting is out there has affected different pitchers in different ways. And, I'm not going to paint Ryu with that brush. But it does give Jays fans maybe a little bit of cause for concern. Yeah, there's definitely an extra question mark. Like, we don't know if he was using Spider Tack when it was quasi-legal, and we don't know if that, the drop that we've seen in his spin rate and his performance has been because Spider Tack isn't being used anymore. Those are things that I'm sure the organization knows and they'll deal with appropriately, and I'm sure they'll probably have a huge impact on what happens in the playoff roster. You're right.
You have to go with your 3 best starters in a 7-game series. And right now, their 3 best starters are Robbie Ray, Barrios, and Manoah. Those are your 3 best starters. The thing is, when you have somebody like Ryu, who's been a starter his whole career, I mean, throughout his career with the Dodgers, it was never even a question. Will he be in the rotation? Of course he's in the rotation. He's, you're one of your best 1-2 guys. Mm-hmm. But you can't just look at what he's done in the past and say, well, he's going to be our, one of our starting pitchers. I don't know if you can take that chance at this point. Now, again, there's still a couple of weeks, and he'll have a few more starts, and hopefully he can rectify and get back to the Ryu that we know. But in a short series, man, I tell you, it's getting harder and harder to find a place for him in that rotation.
I don't think it's necessarily the worst thing in the world. I like going into the playoffs with Ryu in the bullpen. Can you imagine? I mean, remember Tim Lincecum when he went to the bullpen for the Giants and resurrected? And I mean, Ryu hasn't had the problems that Lincecum was coming back from when he found success in the Giants bullpen. He's just had a few bad starts, maybe a bad second half of the season. Putting him on short, I love the look of our bullpen with a guy like Ryu in it.
But the thing is, if the issue is what you're saying it is, where he just can't get a good grip on the ball, do you want that guy coming out of the bullpen with the game on the line in a tight ball game, right? They need to find out what it is that's causing these issues. They need to know why Ryu is not pitching the way he's capable of pitching. But that's all I want to say that's on the negative side, right? We're here. We've got Jesse Barfield coming in, the most positive person in baseball.
Please.
So let's talk positive. And right now, there's just so much to like about this Toronto Blue Jays team. I want so badly to see Vladimir Guerrero win the Triple Crown. But I would not be overly upset if he lost out on the Triple Crown because Teoscar Hernandez has more RBIs. Because more RBIs means more runs are coming in to score and more chances the Blue Jays are going to win games. And I don't think Vladimir Guerrero is going to hold it against Teoscar Hernandez if he ends up having more RBIs than Vladdy. I just think it's wonderful to see. It's wonderful that everybody in this offense is contributing. Danny Jansen has come back from the injured list, and he's rocking it now. I really like seeing what's happening from him. And George Springer is still, making his way back. And we're going to talk to Raj Sapaya later in the show and find out why it is that George Springer is still having these kind of issues with the knee on and off, and what the best plan moving forward would be for him in the Toronto Blue Jays. But what has been impressing you the most about this team? Because, again, it was just a few months ago that everyone had this team written off. Charlie Montoyo, everyone was saying he needs to be fired. Well, Jesse's going to tell us why he thinks Charlie Montoyo is a great manager, too, coming up. So you want to hear that. Yep. But it really has been a build on this team. They've gotten better and better. They're playing home again. It just seems to me this is the time you want a team to play their best baseball, and that's what the Jays are doing right now.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Even losing a game here or there in Toronto right now, people are kind of tending to lose their mind. But you know who this team reminds me of? It's not the 2015 team. It's the 93 team.
Mm-hmm.
And the offense, I mean, we don't have Whamco, but we may be on the verge of 4 players with 100 RBI seasons.
Do you have an anagram for that?
What would the anagram? No, I don't think it's a good one. It's like
no.
Shka.
Yeah, it's just it don't work. We need to come up with something better than that.
Yeah.
Josh Donaldson made another return to the Rogers Center. If I'm not mistaken, did he not come back as a member of the Cleveland Indians? Like, wasn't he back in Toronto once before?
I remember that, but it didn't hurt as much as this reunion did.
What you say hurt? Yeah, he's hit some home runs against the Jays, but the fans gave him an incredible standing ovation, and I'm totally fine with that. And
I love
it.
I mean,
Josh Donaldson did some wonderful things, but here's the way it works when you're a returning player. Thank you for what you've done. Here's your standing ovation. Now you're the enemy. You're on the other team. Now we're not going to cheer you anymore. If you hit a home run, we're not going to cheer your home run because that's going against our team. Do you agree with that, or do you think that Blue Jay fans should be like, yes, JD just hit a home run to put the Twins out in front?
If Joey Bats came out of retirement,
I'm not talking about Joey Bats. Joey Bats was a Blue Jay a long time.
Yeah, but we're talking about the last Blue Jay to win the MVP. I don't know. I have a hard time booing anybody from that 2015 team. And I think a lot of people in Toronto would. It's not his fault that we traded him.
Well,
hold on. You see, my memory of that particular era is a little bit fuzzy. Did we trade him or did he?
No, the Blue Jays traded him for Julian Merriweather. And that was, he started the season with the Blue Jays. Remember, he was having a whole bunch of trouble throwing the ball to first base. And, the thought was, okay, well, maybe Josh Donaldson's best years are behind him. But, and clearly, I mean, he's not going to have another MVP type season at his age and the wear and tear on his body. But having said that, he's done an incredible job making the most of what he has. And he's not going to the postseason this year. And the Blue Jays might. So that's all I care about. The Blue Jays have a really good shot at going to the postseason, and I'm really excited. And let's hope, and I know there's been some talk, and Mark Shapiro is trying to get the ball in motion to allow more fans into the Rogers Center for the last homestand. Because you go around baseball, and the Jays are playing in road ballparks that have 35, 40, 50,000 fans in them.
Yep.
You need to have that crowd. If they can't do it for the regular season, I really hope they can fill the place for the postseason because the fans are so important to the product on the field, and the product on the field has been phenomenal. All right, still to come, folks, a wonderful conversation with a wonderful human being and just a tremendous baseball player in Jesse Barfield. But first of all, what is going on with the Blue Jays leadoff hitter? We'll find out next. There's Tom Forth. I'm Barry Davis. You're listening to and watching Out of the Park.
Foundation Physiotherapy presents The Medical Room.
Joining us as he does each and every week here on Out of the Park is our good pal Raj Sapaya from Foundation Physiotherapy. 3 real locations, 1 virtual location. Are you finding, Raj, more and more now that people are coming back to the clinic and you're doing less of the online Zoom treatments?
Yeah, it's great. People are coming back to the clinics. They're feeling safe. We're safe. There's still Zoom available for people that can't travel or need to get a quick consult done and can come in. So we still have that option, and it works great. But we're open and happy to see you if you need any healthcare needs.
Raj, the Blue Jays. Go ahead,
Barry.
Tom. No, go ahead, Tom. Tom. Go ahead.
Easy, guys. Easy.
We both might need physio if this keeps up.
It's okay.
Well, I was going to ask, a lot of businesses have changed how they're operating right now because of COVID. So we're going 2 years into it, and you work heavily with people. How is business for you and for physiotherapists in general? Is it up? Is it down?
It is. I mean, I think we're consistent, right? People need our care and we're consistent. It was down obviously when everything was shut down, but we've picked back up and it's fairly consistent. Our locations in the city are a little bit quieter because the city has less people. But I think generally, obviously, lucky that my business is better than a restaurant or a gym. We're doing okay considering the environment around us. So.
May I go now, Tom? Can I speak?
Go right ahead.
One of the biggest concerns for the Blue Jays as they head into the postseason, because it looks like they've got a good chance of making the postseason now and going far. And we'll talk to Jesse Barfield about that later in the show. But one of the biggest concerns is the ongoing health concerns of George Springer. Now, George Springer has something what they call a knee contusion. And as you know, this can mean a myriad of things. What it looks like now is that he's dealing with pain. Now, we've talked about pain before, but we've also talked about the fact that,
you also don't want to re-injure it. And this happened to him a few weeks ago where he fouled the ball off of his knee. Mm-hmm. First of all, it seems that whenever we as humans injure ourselves, that if we're going to bang a part of our body at any point, it always seems to be the part that's already injured. Why is that, scientists?
Well, I mean, listen, he banged up the part, but it's that part that got swollen and more painful. Sometimes you can bang a part and it doesn't have to get swollen and painful. We've hit little things here and there and we don't even feel pain. So my theory and my experience, I think if you've had an injury in a certain area and it hasn't been fully recovered, and I have my opinions, and I don't think Springer's first round of therapy was, maybe they brought him back too soon. And so now this, even a smaller impact or a minimal impact creates more swelling and pain in that region because the knee is just irritated. It's easier to irritate. It's like how you and Tom. First time you meet, you guys are buds. Now the smallest thing Tom says just bugs you more and more, right?
Well, we're like an old married couple.
Exactly. It's like an old married couple, right? The same thing with your knee and injury, right? The first time the injury happens, if it's not fully recovered, the next time the smallest thing can affect it even more. And now smaller things can even trigger a larger response, right? Because that's the way our body works. So I think his rehab the first time around in August probably, or they maybe brought him back too soon, maybe because they needed to, because it was, crucial time, right, to get that wild card spot. So, I think they could have kept him off more and got full strength, and that's probably why he's in the situation he's in right now.
Blue Jays fans have long lamented the turf situation at the Rogers Center. Mm-hmm. And, more than one past player has blamed it for the litany of injuries that Blue Jay players, such as Josh Donaldson, Kelly Gruber, have suffered over the years.
Devin Travis.
Mm-hmm. Devin Travis. Yeah. Could we be seeing that here? And might this be one of those things where George Springer gets done his contract and goes, man, that turf killed me.
Obviously, when you're not tied up to the organization, you can say whatever you want, right? So they could say that. Do they train on the turf? I don't know what the training's like. The training on the turf, they're probably, more in tune. But that might have to do with it. They're doing some training on grass during spring training, and then they move to turf, and there's a bit of a transition there. So you could look into the training and maybe simulate that environment in their off-season training, right? That might be that's what I would do, actually. I'd be like, if we're playing on turf, and that's a crucial time, then we're going to train on turf all the time, right? And players don't like it, but that's what we need if that's what the environment is. So,
Josh, when we talk to Jesse Barfield later in the show, we talk about Springer. And one of the things he says about Springer is this guy just wants to play. He'll, play through whatever. And sometimes that causes him more injury because when there are times where he needs to slow down, he won't slow down. So as a physiotherapist, if you have somebody that just is not going to slow down when you need them to slow down, what kind of advice can you give them to allow them to go but not cause more damage?
I hate to use that. This is the last tactic I use, but with a lot of, I would say a lot. There's a good chunk of patients that don't do anything. They revert, and there's a good chunk of patients that do too much when they're injured. Right. For those people, I hate to say it, but I use a little bit more of that fear tactic. I'm like, listen, if you don't take care of it now, the next time you get injured, it's going to get worse. And, if I'm talking to George, I'm like, George, we don't want to be injured in October. Let's be injured in August. Let's take a month off in August. Let's fix it so we're ready for September, October, right? Because now you could be off in September, and that's crucial. So that might be the conversation I have. Again, that's up to the person's decision, but I might use that strategy. It's not a strategy we like to use, but sometimes we have to. to get people to listen. You just got to show them what's better. Is it better to be hurt now or better to be hurt later? Right? And if it's better to be hurt now, let's fix it. Let's take the time off. Let's slow down. Let's strengthen, and let's fix it. Sometimes people gotta hear that. They gotta hear that reality of it. That's the part of the job we don't like, unfortunately, but we do have to do it, especially with high performing athletes. In fact, the people I do it the most with are high performing athletes.
As a physiotherapist, when you see these, litany of injuries, one after another, long-term injuries that are nagging and won't go away, is that often the problem with these high-performing athletes? Is it that they're trying too hard and not giving themselves time to recuperate?
Yeah, there's a bunch of two things. I think you said it right, Tom. It's recovery time, not giving themselves enough time to recover. So it's overtraining, right? They're overtraining, like it's just on and on and on and off. But if you've got a small little injury, it's not going away. Sometimes I do recommend just take 2 weeks to fix that little thing because it's your body telling you something. But sometimes they can't because it's the nature of the training or their sport or there's a tournament coming up. But then we try to make, we try to be realistic. Okay, when in this next few months can you actually take some time? And if that's the time you can, now you're in physio every day for those next 2 weeks because that's your downtime before the next big tournament. Now you're in physio every day and you're at the gym and you're in physio every day. And we're going to fix this, right? And maybe that's how a lot of it is communication and negotiating with the athlete.
Here's the other thing too, is as you have mentioned many times on this show, everyone has a different threshold of pain. So if it were me suffering what George Springer is suffering from, I'd be on the floor crying and saying, I'm not moving until this feels better. George Springer has a higher threshold of pain. So are there situations where pro athletes are doing damage to themselves simply because they don't feel the pain? They don't realize just what kind of damage is there.
Exactly. Or they have an ability to ignore the pain, right? Because it's just a mindset. And I don't know if they're doing damage to themselves, but what they're really doing is they're reducing their ability to rebound or recover quicker, right? And then eventually something's going to happen like a contusion in which they're going to be out, right? And that's why it's important to listen to our body and trust the professional, right? Sometimes the pain might just be a minor thing. And we say, fine, tape it up and you go. But if the professional says you need a few weeks off, you need a few weeks off. But that's always the balance, right? Between the healthcare realm and the economic and the outcomes that are, what's on the line for the athlete and the team, right? There's always, we've heard those stories so many times, in all the sports, right? Because there's just so much at stake.
Well, Raja, this just come to a realization that I really do have a high threshold of pain because you are the biggest pain in the ass, and yet we still have you on each and every week.
Oh, come on, Barry. Don't call me that.
And we'll do it. No, we love you, Raj. Tom,
There's three of us here, and one of us is a pain. I will agree with Barry on that much.
Whenever I say Raj is a pain in the ass, translated that means Tom.
So I think Tom is bigger. Yeah,
I was trying to
Tom is like
Raj.
Tom is like that nagging injury that doesn't go away.
Right. But here's the thing. At the end of the day, this is my show, and I have the last word.
Oakland has 33. Well, if this carries, it might be number 38. Lombardi can't get it. The last 2 home runs Barfield has hit here, Jim. Single by Martinez. Guidry's been tough.
He really has, and oh no, that's gone. How do you like this Barfield?
Well, joining us right now is a former member of the Toronto Blue Jays, a guy that, after all these years, Jesse Barfield, Blue Jay fans still absolutely adore you, and there's a reason why. You're a good human being as well as a great baseball player. There is a lot of excitement in the city of Toronto, in fact, in the entire country of Canada right now. I know you're following along with this. For a guy who's played for this organization, how exciting is this for you to see?
This is very gratifying. This team reminds me a lot of our '85 team. They can do a lot of things well, little things to help win ball games. They don't just do it by the long ball. They do it. They either single to right field, single to left field. They get it done. And that's how you win. You're not going to win with just hitting home runs.
Is there something about this team early on that kind of noted? Because fans seem to have been taken almost by surprise this last amazing run of baseball. It seems like 3 weeks ago, everybody was talking about the end of the season and who we should give up. And, I follow you on Twitter, Jesse. You weren't one of those people. You've really spoken highly about this team all the way through, and it seemed like you've seen the ceiling. But is there something about this team early on that had you a believer in them?
Well, first off, I live down here in Houston, and everybody knows the Astros are a pretty good ball club, so I get razzed all the time. And I told the guys back then, the ones that were talking trash, I said, yeah, you guys are good, no doubt. You're better than us right now. But you wait until we get to full strength. And we're not even at full strength yet.
It's awesome that you still refer to the team as we, because once you're a Blue Jay, you're always a Blue Jay. We spoke to Pat Henkin last week, and, the same type of thing. When it comes to what you and Tom were just talking about seeing, beyond the record the Jays had early on, I always look at that run differential. And I remember back in 2015, Alex Anthopoulos saying, listen, I know we don't look good in the standings right now, but look at our run differential. Eventually that's going to pick up, and it's going to kind of even itself out. I mean, the Jays have the second best run differential in baseball. Was it just a matter of time before they started winning some of these games?
Absolutely. We all know baseball is contagious. Pitching, hitting, defense, everything. And these guys picked it up at the right time. And fortunately for them, the other ball clubs tanked at the wrong time for them. But, hey, we'll take whatever they give us.
You've spoken glowingly about Teoscar Hernandez, and a lot of people have compared his swing to yours. And I think that's a fair comparison. But one comparison I haven't heard, and that kind of struck me, is Mr. Gurriel, with a fantastic arm in the outfield, leading the AL in assists. Is there a little bit of yourself that you see in him?
Well, that kid is talented. He can do a lot of things well. And he's very accurate. When he takes his time and sets up, gets his feet behind him and underneath him, he's very dangerous out there. He's a weapon defensively.
He really is. And it makes you think, Jess, and I don't know if it's too soon to ordain this group the best offense in Blue Jays franchise history, but it's got to be up there, right? I mean, yeah, definitely the Whamco still is always going to be, in my mind, the best that we've ever had. And then you look at those teams in 2015 and 2016. But is it too early to say this is the best offense in franchise history?
I can't say it's too early, simply because the teams you just mentioned, they were home run heavy. And like I said earlier, these guys are throttling back, taking that single the other way when they need to. Situational hitting has increased dramatically. They know what to do in those situations. Like Gurriel saying, hey, what do you do in those situations where you have the bases loaded? Hey, I'm just trying to hit the ball in the air. That's simple. That's simplicity at its best. And he stays with himself. He stays within himself. His game plan is solid. And that trickles all the way down to the 9-hole hitter. Everybody's contributing. Different guy every night.
Jesse, does Charlie Montoyo not deserve a little more credit? I mean, he got ripped terribly by a lot of people when the team was struggling. Yet it's funny, now the team is doing well. You never hear anyone saying, well, a lot of that credit should go to Charlie Montoyo. I mean, everything you're describing sounds like a team philosophy, just a way of thinking for an organization. And the manager has to be part of that decision-making, correct?
Without a doubt. I love the hire from the very beginning. I'm the one that said, hey, be patient with Mark Shapiro. When he first came in, people were ripping him a new one. That guy came from a great baseball family. He knows the game. My son played for him. And, I knew right away that this was going to be a plus. We lost some great people when they went down to Atlanta, the coaching staff there, and you see why they're having success down there as well. It's a winning culture. And the Blue Jays have picked it up. They're playing solid baseball all the way around. So from the front office all the way down to the player development staff, I tip my hat to all those guys. They hung in there and did it right.
You bring up a good point about, people ripping on Shapiro when he got here. I was one of those people for the first couple of years, but I think Barry will attest, over the last 2 years, you can't deny the solid foundation that this ball club has. But, Jesse, following you on social media, is it hard to stay positive and to see the positive? Because you've got one of probably the best feel-good Blue Jays accounts on Twitter. You're always looking at the bright side of things. In the case of Shapiro, you're supporting people that, as it turns out, it was really smart to support rather than give in and throw in the towel. But is it difficult as a player, as a former player, as a baseball guy to stay so positive all the time in social media in this world?
Well, you have to. I mean, you look at social media. It's a joke sometimes. It's a haven for negativity. I'm just trying to turn that around and do something positive and make sure that people start looking at the bright side of things. There's always two sides of the coin.
Yeah, absolutely. And unfortunately, it seems that, everyone is picking a side of the coin. And what I love about you is that, you just tell it like it is. You're positive, and because let's face it, we're in a divided world right now, and whether you're on this side of the fence or this side of the fence, everybody can agree with what you're saying, which is nice. And the world needs a lot more of that. Do you have times where you're looking at stuff on Twitter and you're just like shaking your head going, I really can't read this stuff because it's just getting to me because it's so negative?
There are times I try not to read the negative, to be honest with you. I'm a realistic person, always have been. If the Blue Jays or the teams that I follow, if they suck, then I'm going to tell you, I'm positive they suck right now. They need to fix it. But at the same time, you have to be patient with young players. And they were patient. They took their lumps for a few years. Them getting into the playoffs last year, to me, set the tone for this season. Although it was really crazy because of COVID-19, the pandemic had them all over the place. So what they're doing now, I think it actually helped this team grow together. The camaraderie is amazing. I love the culture of this ball club. That's something that speaks a lot of volume to me. You look at the guys in the corner, you look at all the coaching staff, how they gel together. You see the pitchers. You see Manoah staying loose no matter what happens during the game. He's starting it. He's up there on the front step talking trash and loving it. I mean, this guy, you can't shake a guy like that. You need people like that around you.
And, you've got guys that are battling for positions, battling for playing time. Right? You have a lot of extra infielders. You have some extra outfielders. You've got 3 catchers on the team right now. You would think that was a recipe for a lot of jealousy, a lot of envy. But instead, there's Danny Jansen, the first one to congratulate Kirk, and there's Reese McGuire there to congratulate Danny. Is that harder than it appears, Jesse, on a team when there are guys all fighting for playing time? And when this guy is having a great game, it's probably going to mean that I'm going to be sitting a little bit longer.
Enough can't be said about the culture. We talked about that, and you heard Mark Shapiro talk about that, and other people talk about that. The reason why I say they remind me of our 85 team, we cared about each other. Now, off camera, we ripped each other a new one. The clubhouse, we kept each other loose. But when we went out there on the field, you didn't mess with our brothers. They're family members, like your little brother. You get tired of them, but let someone else pick on them and see what happens. They care about each other. And because of that, they're going to go out there and go through a brick wall if they need to. And unfortunately, it doesn't always work because you look at a guy like Springer, he plays 110%. And because of that, he's injured himself a few times. But, hey, man, you can't take that away from him because that's one of the reasons why George Springer is such a great ball player.
So, just a couple of weeks ago, Barry and I were discussing what looked to be a season that wasn't going the right way. And we kind of saw the silver lining in that 92 and 93 wouldn't have happened without 85 and without the heartbreak of 87, 89, 91. Is this year an 87 or an 85 in your mind, or is it a 92, 93? And if it's an 87, what is it that you think is going to keep us from success? And if we're going into a great postseason here, what is it that you think is going to make the Blue Jays jump over the top?
Well, first off, if they stay the course and play the way they've been playing for the last month and a half, they can beat almost anybody they play. And, anything can happen in the playoffs. Let's get there first. You take it one game at a time. You take it one pitch, one situation at a time. And don't do more than the situation calls for. Stay within yourself. And by doing that, make the pitches, trust your defense, trust the guy ahead of you. If you get that guy over, that he's going to do his job. Just do what you need to do in that situation. And if you think like that, I'm not thinking about winning the entire World Series. Yes, it's in the back of everybody's mind, but you have to set short-term goals in order to reach that goal. And this is a big series right now. I'm sure these guys have their eyes on trying to win the entire division, and they may not make that. But guess what? I'd rather aim high and miss a little bit than shoot low and make it. But I like what these guys are doing. I like their preparation. As long as they stay the course, they're going to be fine.
Be said, Jesse, about playing your best baseball heading into the postseason, right? I mean, yeah, the Yankees or the Red Sox could still grab one of those playoff spots, but I mean, they've been playing crappy baseball for the last month. Meanwhile, the Jays have been just, I've always said that it's better to be the chaser than the chasee going down the stretch, because if you're the chaser and you get in, you've got the momentum going. Now, for a guy who played the game, is there something to be said about that?
It is very important. It is very important. You can't count out the Yankees and the Red Sox. You look at that roster, you look at the guys on the field. I mean, yeah, they're struggling right now, but guess what? One series can turn that whole season around for them. So you can't think that you're all that in a bag of chips right now. I mean, you have to win that game tonight. You have to win that series. And if you stay focused on those things, you don't get overwhelmed about what other people are doing and what have you. You take care of business at home, it'll work out for you.
So with this team heading into the playoffs, if there's one player, either offense or defense, that you think is going to be the big difference maker, maybe it's not the Vladdy, but someone that that has really excited you, that maybe hasn't gotten their due, that you think has a chance to really perform well this offseason.
Wow. So many guys have done a great job. Hard to pick one out. I mean, you've had guys that have carried the ball club for a number of weeks. You've had some unsung heroes come off the bench and do little things. But I think it's going to boil down to the little things in the game to win ball games. Whoever pops up in that situation, stay within themselves. Don't try to do more than the situation calls for. Because that lineup can hurt you from 1 through 9, to be honest with you. Teoscar may not get you that night. Vladdy may not get you that night. George will probably be the hero. This guy will probably be the hero. That guy. It doesn't matter who does it. Just get the job done.
And you know what I think is a great sign is that opposing teams and players and even managers are now starting to get ticked off at the Jays, right? We saw it in the Baltimore series where they were getting on Robbie Ray. Everywhere around the league, you know what that means? That means the Blue Jays have served notice that they're a team to be reckoned with, right? I mean, you don't get ticked off like that against a team that's last place and doesn't have a chance.
That's true. That's a very good point, Barry. And, tempers are going to flare in the game. I'm glad they handled it the way they handled it. I don't have a whole lot to say about what the manager said and why he said it, screaming at a pitcher, but that's one of those unwritten rules you don't do in baseball. You don't talk to a guy. If you got something to say it to the other manager. But in any event, they handled it well. He's a better man than me because I'll tell you that. I'm a nice guy, but there's a button that everyone has a button. And I'm glad that they handled it the way they did. Cooler heads, Bill.
Taking that philosophy that we were talking about, as far as, just worrying about trying to get through this series or trying to get through that game and not looking too far ahead. 1985, you guys go into the ALCS against the Kansas City Royals. Before we get to the fact that you guys were there and had a chance to win it and, a wind-aided triple ended all that for you, what was that feeling for the team? Was there a moment leading into the series where you're thinking we can beat this team and we're going to go to the World Series? And then when you're up on them, and you're that close, I think, was it 3-1 you guys had a series lead against the Royals? Were you guys getting a little ahead of yourselves at all?
I don't know if it's us getting ahead of ourselves. We still talk about it collectively. Why did we pitch to George Brett? Why did we pitch to him? Why did we let him hurt us? I don't make the managerial decisions, but I do remember out in center field during the meeting we were talking, I said, they're going to walk Brett. Yeah, George said, yeah, they're going to walk him. The shaker said, oh, for sure they're going to walk him. We go out to right field, and I'm looking for Ernie to go walk in. And he kneels, he squats down. I'm like, they better pitch around him. And sure enough, Doyle tried to fool him again. You don't fool a guy like George Brett, because when your approach is right, people ask me all the time, the best player you ever played against, he's the best hitter I ever played against, that's for sure. That guy knows how to hit in the clutch. And this is what I'm talking about earlier. George Brett is the reason why they won that World Series. And that particular game showed the whole world who he really is and why you don't pitch to him in certain situations. We did, and it cost us. We paid for it dearly.
Talking about George Brett, I mean, obviously one of the greatest hitters in baseball history. Is he a different type of hitter than exists today in the game? With all the focus on launch angles and putting the ball in the air, is there anybody in the game that would even be comparable to Brett?
Well, I'll put it this way: it's a lot of hitters that know how to hit in situations. Whether they get up there in that situation or not, I mean that's part of the game. But a Brett could hit a double. A Brett could hit a single the other way, and of course he had power, but he stayed within himself. It doesn't matter who you are or what stats you have. You stay within yourself and try to do what that situation calls for. I don't mean to be redundant, but that's the truth. Good things will happen, because if you try to do too much, and like they say in this game, when you try to do too much, you usually don't do too much. And Brett and I became friends later, and we talked about situation. Reggie Jackson. I asked Reggie one day. I said, Reggie, how is it that you can go up in those situations and just like it's no big deal, just club 3 home runs in the World Series? He goes, in front of 50,000+ people. He said, Jesse, I see the fans out there, but I don't feel them. I go up to home plate and I look at what I need to do in that situation to be successful, and I stay within myself. And boy, he rode that all the way to Cooperstown.
Wow. Not to say that the guy I'm going to mention is on that level, but as far as the closest thing the Blue Jays have had to that over the last, 15, 20 years, was Jose Bautista that guy, the guy that in a certain situation, or if he was pissed off, Jesse, he could use that to his advantage. Was he that type of player that could rise in certain occasions?
Yes, he was. And one of the things about Jose, although he had tremendous power, he didn't really drive the ball to the opposite field a whole lot for power. And that's the difference right there. When you get in a playoff situation, that's no knock against Jose. I loved Jose, still do to this day. But when you get in situations where you can hurt the opposing team, you may need to go up there and look for the slider down and away and drive it over the first baseman's head. I'd like to see more of that, particularly in playoff baseball, because you're facing better pitchers. They're going to hit their spots. If you're going to win that game, if you're going to win that 1-0 game, you might need to throttle back and do just that, because pitchers are not going to always make mistakes. And when they don't, you have to take what they give you.
I love kind of going down the list of the past Blue Jays sluggers. I saw something that you retweeted last week, comparing Harold Baines' career statistics to Fred McGriff's career statistics, and kind of, it's as close as negative as I've seen your Twitter feed. Kind of saying, hey, you know what? It's a shame that McGriff isn't in the Hall of Fame and that Baines is. But the question I have for you, if you had to pick between Fred McGriff and Carlos Delgado, former Blue Jays that I think have both kind of been slighted by the Hall, which one would be your pick for Cooperstown?
That's a tough one. That is a tough one.
Can he say both, Tom? Can he just say both?
I would say, wow. It's funny too. You mentioned Fred McGriff. We actually texted each other yesterday, and he was telling me, "Hey, remember I told you I'm not even on social media, so thank you for keeping this alive for me." I said, "Freddie, that's what friends do." And he said, "You're certainly that to me, and I appreciate it." Fred McGriff needs to be there. Carlos Delgado needs to be there. This organization has had a lot of great players, and for us not to have as many people in the Hall of Fame, that's an injustice.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Just what we're seeing with this Blue Jays team now, and you mentioned it, that camaraderie, and it does bring back memories of you and Shaker and George in that outfield. And it was an unbelievable relationship the three of you guys had. Do you remember the first time you met those guys, and how that went, and if was it an instant connection? What do you recall about the first time you got to know those two?
Yeah, Shaker and I hit it off right away. And we were roommates in the instructional league, my second instructional league in 78. I was there in 77 as well. But we were roommates. We hung out together. We did everything. We ate together. and we really got to really know each other's downfalls, weaknesses, strengths, and there's certain things you don't do and say around guys. And George was a little bit different. He was a little cocky at first, but you know what? I understand where George Bell is coming from, and I want a guy like that on my team every day that goes out there, plays hard, loves his teammates. But if you don't know George Bell, you think he's a little bit of a butthole, but he's not. He's a great teammate. But when he's out there on the field, yeah, he's not taking any prisoners.
No, it's so true. I mean, as I've gotten to know George, and I didn't know George very well during his playing days, but I got to know him since. And I know that as, you know, people get a little bit older, they mellow out a little bit. But when I met him at fantasy camp a few years ago, my thinking was, this guy is hilarious. I had no idea that coarseness that people see is actually his sense of humor. I mean, he was constantly getting on my case, but he would always have that little laugh. Now, a lot of people got on my case because you know I wasn't very good, Jesse, but I tried my best.
Hey, we can all be rippable sometimes, you know. Always tell me, Jesse, why you always ripping me, man? I said, Tony, because you do crazy stuff. You're rippable, man. I got to get you. But I tell you a funny George Bell story. We were in Toronto and at a hotel. And this guy comes up to me. There was a lithograph of me, George, and Lloyd. Really nice. In fact, I'd love one of those. And George hadn't signed it. Lloyd signed it. I signed it. He goes, do you think that Mr. Bell would sign this for me? I said, hold on, time out. I said, this is your first mistake. Don't call him Mr. Bell. Go up to him. I said, you got to trust me on this. If he doesn't do it, I'll get it done personally, but this is how you handle it. You go up to George and say, hey, George, I need you to sign this. And look right in his eyes. The guy was shivering. I said, no, trust me. Do it that way. He goes over to him. George, I need you to sign this. George looked at him, looked down at it, looked back at the guy and said, okay, drop down and give me 10, I'll sign it. So he dropped down and gave 10 push-ups. And George, he said, Jesse, he did it. This is the best George Bell autograph I've ever gotten. I said, I tell you, he's a teddy bear on the inside.
I had a very similar experience with George, and it was at a golf tournament. And we had set up and we were recording our show from there. And George was between holes, and he had about 15 minutes before he had to tee off because it was slow. I said, George, can we get you, to do a thing for our show? He goes, I'm golfing, man. I'm like, no, it won't take long. How long will it take? I said, I don't know, 3 minutes. He looks at his watch, goes, okay, go. And we start talking to him, and he literally looks at his watch, goes, 3 minutes are up. Okay, bye. And he starts laughing. Yeah. And he looks at his watch, 3 minutes, right? And I'm like, but it was, the 3 minutes we had with him were phenomenal. Like, it was just so good, right? Likewise, I was with George when Josh Donaldson was named the MVP, and George was kind enough to do a little video for him and congratulate him and stuff like that. So, yeah, the guy's got a big heart. I mean, yes, he did drop Buck Martinez on the stretcher when he broke his leg, but we can overlook that, Jess, right?
That is too funny. Yeah, I mean, again, I love George. We talk periodically, and yeah, I just wish those guys all the best. I wish we could see them more.
By the way, I saw Fred McGriff at the Jays Fest 3 years ago, and I said, we got to get you on the show. He goes, I'd love to come on the show. And so I said, can I give me an email? He goes, I gave him mine. I still haven't heard from him yet. Next time you talk to Fred, tell him what a great time you had on this show. We need to get him some promotion out here. Jays fans would love to see Fred again.
Let's get him into Cooperstown.
Yes, let's do that too, no doubt. Because
PR campaign, right?
Absolutely right.
So Jesse, the three of you played a huge role in the baseball lives of like a lot of young people. As you can tell, I still have you right here in a place of honor in my basement. But the question I have is, everybody knows when you get a group of three good friends together, two of them always get together and pick on one of them. So out of you three outfielders, who's the one that always gets made fun of?
Huh.
Well, you're the youngest, aren't you?
He's probably thinking about it.
I say George, to be honest with you, because he deserves it. No, seriously, he can dish it out. And he had to really understand, if you're going to dish it out the way you dish it out, bro, you have to take it too. And so early in his career, he would dish it, but he'd kind of get a little upset when you get it back. I remember one time we're in the clubhouse, and this came out of nowhere. It's quiet. We're getting ready to go out to the game, go out to play. We have a little quiet time where we're getting ourselves ready mentally for that game. He turns around, he looks at me, it's quiet. He goes, "Jesse, I'm a better hitter than you." Kind of threw me off guard. I didn't expect that. I looked up, I'm sitting down, I looked up at him and I said, yeah, you are. I'm like, he walked out with that laugh you were talking about. I'm like mad at myself. That was a horrible comeback. That was a bad retort, Jesse. Come on, you're better than that. So I'm like, give me one more chance with this. Let him do it again. So sure enough, a few weeks later, he didn't get a good enough rise out of me. So he goes, "Jesse, I'm a better hitter than you." I said, "Yeah, you are, but I'm a better all-around player than you." Yeah, you are.
Jesse, in 87, leading into that year, I believe that was the year that George was told he was going to DH to start the season. And we remember back then what happened. As a group of the three of you as friends, I would love to have been a fly on the wall when George came to you guys and said, "Can you believe this crap that I'm going through right now?"
Yeah, we knew it wasn't going to be good that day. We knew. He goes, "There's no way I'm going to DH. These guys are crazy, man." So, you know what happened? And they called his name, and George Bell is down in the bullpen. So they better get another pinch hitter for him because he's not playing. He's not playing. And we knew right then and there that when this guy says he's going to do something, he does it.
So there was nothing that you and Shaker could do to kind of...
We tried to encourage him, but he had his mind made up. When you have your mind made up, there's not a whole lot people can say to you about it. I understand. I mean, you go and come off MVP and all of a sudden they make a decision to make you DH. I'd be pissed off too.
George got a little bit of a rough ride here by from the media in Toronto, and I remember being one of those kids that was really angry when he wouldn't come out. But there were a lot of rough edges in those 85 to 89 Jays. Is there any other player that sticks out in your mind as being sort of difficult to deal with or maybe misunderstood? Yeah.
I think that's a great word, misunderstood, because I had fun with him every day. Shake and all those guys. Ernie was the one. He was the sneakiest guy ever. I loved Ernie Witt. Still do to this day. But he would stir some things up and back out. Buck Martinez was that way. He would stir some things up and back out. And they're sitting in the background laughing as we go at each other. It's like a family. I mean, you're going to have stuff like that go on, but at the same time, you got to understand their heart. They don't mean anything by it. It's just the way they are.
I remember when we had Ernie on the show and we were talking about how these days, the mental part of the game has been such an important factor, and teams have hired mental health coaches and stuff. And I said, so Ernie, back in your day, if you had like an 0 for 20 and you were just so down in the dumps, what did you guys have? He goes, "We had Labatt's Blue."
That's a good call.
Right. So that was Ernie for you right there. Now, you're very active on social media these days. Back when you played, social media didn't exist. But let's just say for a second it did exist. So back in 1985, who on that team would have been the king of social media, the king of Twitter, and who would have been the one that was going around telling everybody, "Don't get on this thing"?
I would say probably Shaker. The one that would say, "Don't get on this thing." I'd have to think about that one.
Well, it's funny you said Shaker because he's not on any social media right now.
No, he's not. But had it been there back then when he was a star, he probably would have been.
You want to hear a cool Shaker story, Jesse? So back when I was around 17 years old, so it was mid-'80s, I had my first part-time job. I was selling shoes at a mall in Etobicoke called Sherway Gardens. And lo and behold, Shaker comes in wanting to buy a pair of shoes from me. but he asked for a size 13 in these white loafers. We only had up to size 12, and I was trying to convince him that he could shove his foot into that size 12 because I wanted to sell a pair of shoes to the shaker.
That is too funny.
Yeah.
You should have sold a shoe stretcher.
That's right. I'm sure I tried everything I possibly could, Jesse, to get it done. I do want to ask you about one thing that we see a lot of on social media is not only tweets from you, and you talked about that family you had in the clubhouse and in the outfield, but you and Marla, your wonderful wife, are such an incredible team. I love the support she gives you. I love the support you give her. Where did this love story begin? Are you guys high school sweethearts? Did you meet way back? How did you and Marla hook up?
Actually, one of my best friends, he was Terry Kennedy's backup with the San Diego Padres, was in the World Series actually, was Doug Gush. His nickname was iChart because the way his name was spelled, it was horrible. We called him iChart. Well, he was actually dating one of her classmates at the time at University of Houston. And I was dating someone, so he kept telling me, hey, you got to meet her. You got to meet Marla. So we went over to hit at the Hawkeyes Pavilion, getting ready for spring training. And he goes, hey, man, they're at the dorm right now. Let's go over there. So I'm in my baby blues. And of course, back then they had to come down to get you. You can't just walk up and go up to their dorm room. And so she came down to get us. And he was dating her best friend, Pam. So they came down to get us. And I remember she was telling me this story. I get on the elevator and I'm towards the front of the elevator. She's behind me. And she said, I have to admit, I saw those baby blue pants and I'm looking down. I'm like, wow, this is nice. so I go up, we finally get out of the elevator and there was a guy sitting in her room with some other people. I thought it was her boyfriend, so I didn't make a move. You know, I'm a gentleman. I didn't make a move. So that guy finally left. I left, and I didn't call him back. And then Doug had to go out to San Diego for an appearance, and she called Pam. Pam called Doug and gave Marla. Marla got my phone number, and she called me. I was actually laying on the couch sleep, and she woke me up. And later that afternoon, we met up for the first time and, outside of her school. And we had lunch, we talked. And I knew I was in trouble. That other girl, I broke up with her a week later. And we've been together. We've been married 39 years now.
Fantastic. Wow. Is she around? Is she there right now?
Yeah, she's probably still asleep.
I was talking to her last week, and I said, "Come on, jump on with Jesse. We want to hear from you too." But I don't want to wake her up. So
yeah, we'll do that next time for sure. Because she told me that, and she won't mention it to me if she doesn't want to do it. She'd be glad to do something like that.
Yeah.
Was it difficult starting a relationship when you're essentially gone for half of the year?
No, not at all. Because the trust was there. It actually helped because if you're around a person 24/7. I mean, you can get on each other's nerves. I'm not going to lie. And sometimes we'll just look at each other and go, hey, I'm going to go upstairs in the room and just chill for, you do just that. Go ahead. Because I know I get on her nerves too sometimes. But, I love coming up here and chilling and watching sports. And she gives me my space when I need it, and I give her hers when she needs it.
That's exactly it. I've been with my wife since 1989. And so all those years when I was on the road with the Blue Jays, I think that saved my marriage. I think being away that long is what kept us together all these years. There's something to be said about it.
It is I think it keeps it fresh.
Yeah.
My wife always tells me she likes me more and that we get along better when I'm away. So.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. And you probably went through the same stuff, Jesse, that, as the season starts to wear on and when the season's over, your wife, Marla's probably like, oh, I can't wait for Jesse to come home. I can't wait for her to get home. Then come like early January and she's like, are you heading up to Florida soon? Like, are you going to like the clock is ticking, Jesse, you need to go. Right.
There are times, but funny, my family was with me a lot. I remember Buck Martinez actually teasing my wife and said, hey, you have team luggage also? And she said, actually I do. Jesse got me some. So I love my family with me on the road. And spring training. That's the most fun time ever down there because things are a little more relaxed, especially when you have the ball club already made. But there was some nervous times when I first met her. I wasn't even sure if I was going to make the ball club in '82, but I picked it up a little bit towards the end, and I ended up being on that team as well. So it was she was there the whole time with me.
Was it mostly did the married guys kind of hang out with each other more, and then the single guys hung out with each other more? Because it's two totally different lifestyles. I know when I traveled,
I didn't go out a lot with the media because most of them were either single or wishing they were single, if you know what I'm saying. And that just wasn't my scene, right? I felt the best way to avoid getting in trouble is to avoid being in a situation that could lead to trouble. So I just stayed away from that.
Yeah, I got teased a lot about always having a room service tray outside my hotel room. One tray. And, the guys would come and knock on the door and come on in, man. And they're kind of looking around. They'll peek in the closet, go in the bathroom. And I know what they're doing. They're looking for somebody, but there's nobody there. Only thing you're hearing is me laughing at the comedy. You laughing at the TV program and chilling. That's all I basically did. I'd go out and eat with the guys and hang out with them, but I didn't mind staying to myself when I needed to.
Is that sort of thing? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah. Is that sort of thing gone from today's game? Like, are the current Blue Jays going out into the clubs and dogging it? Like
No, I mean, with social media, can you imagine going outside and doing some stupid stuff? You're crazy if you did that today. But now, these guys have a good head on their shoulder, and for that, I'm grateful.
Well, Jesse, one of the great things about our show is that we bring in some of our fans and your fans, and we allow them to interact with you. So we're going to bring in 4 people that all would love to say hello to you and ask you a question. So we are bringing them in right now for you. And what else we got here? Is everybody in? Oh, I still got to bring in Craig here. All right. So, Jesse, you have John and Sue. We have Jody. And in a moment, you'll have Craig. So let's begin with John and Sue. I know you guys both know Jesse, so say hello. And Sue, you go first.
Oh, hi, Jesse. Great to see you.
How are you going?
Good.
Are you guys?
I would just like to ask, what rings are you wearing?
Well, got the home run ring. That one. Got my wedding band. That's it.
Oh, it was the home run ring that caught my eye. It was kind of bling, nice bling.
Sue, you never asked me about my fantasy camp ring where my team beat Team Jesse Barfield for the championship.
That's funny.
That's awesome.
Nice. Put that up there again. Let me see that. Put that up there again. Let me see that. I tell you what, they win the World Series this year. I'm designing the next one. That's nice.
Yeah. That came courtesy of one of my teammates on fantasy camp, and he had them made for all of us, and it's a nice little keepsake to have.
It is. That's beautiful.
My favorite question to former Jays players is, what do you think of the new rules, the MLB rules, like extra innings with a runner on second base? And
I think we know already.
I'll tell you why I don't like it. For me to see a runner on second base, nobody out, and time after time he gets stranded. I mean, whatever happened to a bunt? Whatever happened to get jammed and hit inside baseball and hit it the other way? I mean, they're basically giving you a run, but yet you're trying to hit a 3-run home run with a runner on second base? Come on, man. That's not winning baseball. Are you kidding me? And it all boils down to it's not a payable stat to bunt him over. It's not a payable stat to hit behind the runner. Yeah, but it's a stat that'll help you win ball games. You'll be rewarded in the end anyway. They need to get rid of that.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Sue. And Jesse, if they instituted a rule like that back when you guys played, God, can you imagine the fallout from the players? I was talking to Pat Henkin last week about, can you imagine how Roy Halladay would have reacted if he was coming off the mound and an umpire asked him to undo his belt and look inside his pants? Like, these things just weren't part of baseball when we were growing up.
Unfortunately, these things are part of baseball, but you have to roll with the punches. People look at you and say, well, he's old school. No, you have to be school in baseball because things have changed a lot. Some old school is great, but you have to adapt. This is what we have. These are the cards we're dealt right now, and you have to deal with it. I don't think that rule, honestly, will stick runner on second base. In the 7-inning games, play 9.
Yep, I agree with you. All right, the next card that you're going to be dealt is John. John, say hello to Jesse.
Hey, Jesse, say hi to Marla from us, and I hope she's still doing the jewelry. It's beautiful stuff.
Yeah,
and
she's in her studio.
And I love your Twitter posts with pictures of your grandchildren and your faith. Keep them going.
Yes,
There's
yes,
lots.
Thank you so much.
I want to ask you about managers, and I apologize for looking down because I'm looking at some notes here. So 81 to 89, you're with the Blue Jays. You have Bobby Maddock in 81. You've got Bobby Cox from 82 to 85. You win the AL East. You've got Jimmy 1M Williams from 86 to 89. And then Cito takes over when the team is 12 and 24 in 89. Then you go to the Yankees, and where did it go?
Dallas Green.
Yeah. Dallas Green. So you have Dallas Green, Bucky Dent, Stump Merrill, Buck Showalter, and you even had who was it? Dick Hauser for one, Ralph Houck for one game. So as a player, what's it like having all those different managers and different approaches to the game?
That didn't bother me because you listen, I came from a great organization with the Blue Jays. We were taught fundamentals. We were taught how to win with Bobby Cox. And Cito Gaston was my batting coach. I never had a chance to play for him. I would have loved it. But I got along with every one of my managers because they knew I was going to give them 100% of what I was that day. And I may not have been 100%, but if I'm 80%, you know that I'm going to give you 100% of that 80. So I didn't have a problem with the managers. I played the game right. We were taught how to play the game right. But you have to adapt. Every one of those guys you mentioned had one thing in common: play the game right, play it hard, and respect each other.
Awesome. John, thank you so much for your question. Appreciate that. Let's move over to Jody. Jody, say hello to Jesse.
Morning, Jesse. How are you doing?
Hey, Jody. How are you?
Good. We had the pleasure of meeting you in the batting cages at Winterfest a few years back, and I sure hope that COVID goes away so we can do that again.
Yeah, no doubt.
My son thinks that the rest of Winterfest is boring and that the batting cages is where it's like loop the line like his favorite roller coaster.
Yes.
To get to go in there and bat and you were such a gentleman posing for pictures with people and stuff, so I appreciate it. I wanted to ask you about your time now as a not playing ball player. What's your favorite part of what you do with the Jays now?
Well, it's basically, I feel like a very proud uncle. These are my little nephews, and these are my little brothers out there doing their thing, trying to make it to the next level, and trying to get to the World Series. And we're here for support. That's what we're here for. And anything I can do to encourage those guys, I'll do it. And I'm very proud of them. I'm very proud of how they've come back, how they were able to withstand all the COVID-19 travel, being in 3 different home ballparks. People don't think that's very difficult. I think it actually made the team click better. The camaraderie's there. And I think it molded them into, can you imagine having 50,000 fans in the Dome right now? It would be crazy, especially with the roof closed, man. You'd have earplugs in your ear right now.
It's amazing with 15. I've been to 7 games since they reopened, and the environment is just out of this world.
It is incredible. And to see what they've gone through and where they are now is very satisfying to me.
Jesse, go ahead, Tom.
Oh yeah, how big a factor do you think it was spending those almost 2 years on the road, not having a home stadium, living out of a suitcase? How big of an effect do you think it had on the team then? And is it something that's helping them just kick butt now that they finally have their home?
It is, because stability's here. People look at the different backdrops of ballparks to hit in. It takes a while to get accustomed or reused to the backdrops in the different ballparks because they're different. But them playing in the dome, I remember when I went to do the draft this year, and Commissioner Mansberg came up to me. He's never said anything to me other than hello. He walked up to me before we got back in the dome and said, "Hey, do you know anybody in government that could possibly get the Jays back? The Blue Jays need to be in Toronto." I said, "Yes, sir. We need to be in Toronto. However, I don't know anybody in Parliament or anything." I turn around, next thing you know, they okay the Blue Jays to come back. And I'm like, yes, this is it right here.
See, Jesse Barfield for mayor. I think that's what we need to do.
How about that? But I'm glad that the decision was made to do this. It was at the right time.
Jesse, as a kid growing up, it was Exhibition Stadium for me. And I know it was, it was a bit of a dump, but it had a certain charm, and it's the memories I have, whether it be sitting on hard metal benches down the first base line or sitting out in the bleachers getting my tickets, Junior Jays tickets for $2 at Dominion. But there was a certain charm about it from a fan perspective. I think anybody who's listening and watching that's old enough to remember will know that. But as a player, did that stadium have any redeeming qualities at all? Like, was there anything about that ballpark that you guys liked?
I loved it.
Come on.
I came from Dundee. I'm sorry. I came from Knoxville, Tennessee. I came up from AA. Would you rather be at Exhibition Stadium playing 47,000 people, or would you rather be in Knoxville, Tennessee playing at an old stadium?
Okay, good point.
I'll take the big leagues over AA any day. You guys saw beyond the bleachers. I'm sorry, beyond the wall in right field, you saw the open space. Remember, we didn't see that from our perspective. It was weird not having fans behind you in right field. There's enough ballparks out in the American League that had fans behind you. That was the only weird thing about it. It was wide open space behind you in right field and center field. But as far as the fans right there for you, I love that place. I talk to the kids all the time in right field and wave at people. You didn't have a whole lot of foul territory. The bullpen was right there. You had to be careful. That could have easily been an injury. But other than that, I mean, it was a great place to play. The ball carried out to right center. The wind blew off of Lake Ontario out to right center. So if you didn't hit the ball the other way, I mean, that wasn't very smart if you were righty.
Talking about the weather at Exhibition Stadium, I mean, I remember the home run in the fog. I think it was Gruber that hit, and nobody found the ball. Do you have one story that sticks out in your mind of just the wacky weather at the X that you had to go through?
Yeah, absolutely. It was early in the season, and that wind was howling off Lake Ontario that day, and it was a pitching change. And I walk out towards the right field fence, and I get behind one of the actual tarp. The team, I forgot what team it was. It might have been Oakland or whoever. But I caught myself. I said, this doesn't look right. And so we were complaining about the conditions. And Bobby Cox at the time held a meeting. And he said, guys, enough complaining about the weather. Use it to your advantage. The other teams have to come in here and play in this. They're not used to it. So stop the complaining and use it to your advantage. That was the last time we ever said anything about the weather.
There's a reason why Bobby Cox was the manager he was
in his career. So there you go. All right, Jody, thank you. One more to go. Craig, wearing the baby blue in honor of Jesse Barfield. Say hello to Jess.
Thank you, Barry. Thank you, Tom, crew, and the crew for having me back on 11. Jesse, my gosh, epic to be able to talk to you. A few quick housekeeping things, Jesse. I'm the Craig Ballard 77 on Twitter that probably keeps annoyingly sending you my Blue Jays videos. So right out of the gate, Jesse, I do apologize. And as well, can we just go ahead? I know I'm not wearing a hat, but a quick hack tip to the epic Zoom setup that Jesse Barfield has.
Yeah,
He's
that
got
looks
himself
awesome.
in the bottom answering questions. And, oh, are my 2 gold gloves in the picture as well? Oh, that's a nice coincidence. Oh, lovely. So Jesse, my God. And lastly, Jesse, because I need to maintain a good and the Silver Slugger. Oh my gosh, he's got the whole thing. He's got it all on display. Oh my God. Jesse Barfield, nobody's fool.
I got the
Yeah.
up here.
Oh my God. Epic. Don't tell me that's a nameplate from one of your lockers too. Don't round it off and just be so classic that
No,
that's a
actually,
nameplate.
it's not. I had it.
Okay.
It's designed from my company, Sports Design. So.
Oh, awesome. Still awesome. Now, Jesse, I have to mention so I can continue to have a relationship with my mom. She's made it crystal clear that I need to make it clear to Jesse Barfield that she's a massive Blue Jay fan and her favorite Blue Jay ever, number 29, Jesse Barfield. So I feel like I've been a good son and acknowledge that with your okay. Yes.
You just made him feel old too.
No, no way, no way. Jesse's looking like $1 million. He's looking like he could hit third or fourth in the lineup right now.
I don't know about that, but I'll give it a whack.
There you go. Now, Jesse, my question, when you think about Jesse Barfield, the baseball player, I do think you think about the defense. Not as a defensive specialist. Jesse could handle the bat. We know that. But you think about what comes to mind, that gold standard for right arms out in right field, that Jesse Barfield arm. So what I'd love to have you do here, Jesse, is take us through a life cycle of that cannon. When you were growing up, when did you realize, hey, this will work? And, as you continue to grow up, it was separating you from your peers. How long, once you were drafted in baseball, was your right arm the best kept secret in baseball? And then finally, at one point, Jesse, did you start to take it downright personally when you saw that third base coach waving the runner home on you, when you saw that runner trying to stretch that single to a double right in front of your face? At what point did you start to take that personally? So take us through the life cycle, Jesse, of that cannon that you've got.
Great question.
To me, it all started, that's a great question. It all started when I was probably 11, 12 years old.
Wow.
My house, right across from the railroad tracks, you have to walk down to the end of the street. You had an open field, railroad tracks, and there was an old steel mill that had just shut down. And I picked up some rocks. I'm trying to make it all the way past the tracks and hit the steel mill. And finally, one day, I'm probably 14 years old, I picked one of the smooth rocks up, and I just, and guess what? I got me a window.
Bling! Yes. Oh, man, that must have been sweet music. That must have been sweet. It's a sweet sound.
Yes, sir. And as far as I was actually drafted as a center fielder, and then they moved me to right field in 1982. No, I'm sorry, I take that back. In 1978, because Dave Steve was actually in center field. I was in right field.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot of people don't remember that. Steve started off as a center fielder with the Blue Jays, and they remembered him as a pitcher. And I'm glad they remember because he was a heck. But they moved me to right field, and it worked out great for me because I was hoping to make it to the big leagues as a right fielder, and it worked out for me. Wow. So being a fielder, you neutralize the first and third situation. You have to have that best arm in right field or the most accurate arm. Guys that get rid of the ball quickly. Footwork is important. Jimmy Williams was an amazing coach, the best all-around coach we ever had. He was great at footwork. He was great at bunting. You name it, Jimmy Williams knew how to do it. So he enhanced what I already had. He was a genius.
Wow.
But I never took anything for granted because the one time I took something for granted in center field, a guy tagged up, and I'm like, nah, this is shallow. He's not going to go. I double clutched. Man, he was safe. I said, I'll never do this again. I'll never take anything for granted. So if you charge the ball, especially playing on that AstroTurf in Toronto, if you charge the ball, you come up hard, most of the time they're not going to go anyway. So by doing that, getting to it quickly and getting rid of it quickly, it's going to take another base hit to score him. A lot of times with our pitching staff, that base hit never came.
Jesse, I remember maybe about 7-8 years ago, and Craig, you'll remember who it was that was at the plate for Baltimore, and Jose Bautista decided he was going to, and he was pissed off at the time, let's face it. Jose was mad. He tried to throw him out at first base, and it blew out his arm, and I don't think his arm was ever the same after that. Have you ever had moments in your career where you were like, really contemplating? I think did you ever do it once? Something tells me that you once threw to first base, but like, is that a tempting thing as an outfielder?
I'd have to look at the stats someone said I threw out Ricky Henderson at first base. I don't know. Somebody can find it somewhere. And Ricky Henderson can fly.
Yeah.
And if that was the case, I could possibly see that happening because I've never seen Ricky hit a ball over a right fielder's head. So I would play him a little shallow anyway and try to take the little dinker that he would hit every now and then with the bullets that he hit too. But I can see that happening, but I honestly do not remember wholeheartedly me throwing Ricky out at first. Someone said I did. I don't know. But a guy like Ricky Henderson, he did so many things well on the field. And we were teammates with the Yankees. I remember when Ricky called me up and said, hey, they're going to honor me at the stadium. I want you to be there. I said, what uniform you want me to wear? He said, we were teammates with the Yankees, so wear the Yankee jersey. Well, I was just in Toronto about a week, 10 days prior to this and doing something for the Blue Jays. And it just so happened they were playing the Blue Jays that day. So we come down center field, down this hill. All of us are in a classic convertible. We're riding around. We get in front of the Blue Jays dugout. And I knew this was going to happen. So I planned ahead of time, and I had my Blue Jays jersey. I'm sure you guys have seen it online before. I had my Blue Jays jersey underneath my Yankee jersey underneath. And so when they got around the side, I told the driver, stop. They're ripping me a new one. Hey, man, what are you doing? What are you doing? Are you kidding me? Well, I unbuttoned it. Lo and behold, there's my Blue Jays. Said, oh, okay, we got you. We got you. I knew that was.
That's fantastic. Well, this is a great place to end. So, Jesse, on behalf of everyone here, thank you so much. I know we've tried real hard to kind of hook up with you. You've got a very, very busy schedule, and I do thank you so much for making the time to spend with us here today.
My pleasure.
Well, there he is, folks. Former Toronto Blue Jay, Jesse Barfield. And once again, we have our OTP insiders joining in, having an opportunity to chat with Jesse Barfield. How rare is that? We would like more of you to join in on these Zoom chats. And all you have to do to join in on one of these Zoom chats with one of your favorite former Toronto Blue Jays is do what, Tom?
Patreon.com/outofthepark. $3 a month, $5 a month. Support us a little bit, and you get to take part every single week in a communication and a great chat with legendary Blue Jays, with reviled Blue Jays, with beloved Blue Jays. You know, it's the best part of the week for everybody that sits in on these talks. Join us.
And Jesse, I know you're watching now. We appreciate everything that you're doing to help us get Fred McGriff on the show. We want to help Fred McGriff get some attention and get some votes to get into that Hall of Fame, because I think Jesse's bang on. Fred McGriff deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. Right?
Big time. Yep.
Yeah.
Big time.
So again, a big thank you to Jesse Barfield for joining us. Of course, thank you to Raj Sapaya for joining us as well. Jesse Barfield did a lot of great things, okay? And as a ball player, Jesse was so much better than I could ever dream of. But where Jesse Barfield really stood above me was he had so much better hair than me. Don't you think? He had, I would say, the best hair in baseball during his playing days.
You know what, Barry? Your hair when you were younger, I've seen the pictures, was so legendary. The only person I've ever seen with better hair than you was your wife.
We actually did share the same haircut at one point. Now I'm in jeopardy of sharing the same haircut with you, which is not a good thing. Tom, as always, thank you, and thanks to all of you for making us a part of your week.